Greetings, everyone. It's Glenn Kellaway coming to you from the basement. How are you guys today? Today, I wanted to talk about acoustic music, bluegrass, folk, that kind of thing. I wanted to talk about being a guy who grew up with the Beatles and the Stones and then Zeppelin and Cream and Hendrix. How does a guy like that end up playing a banjo and having such a passion for string music, acoustic music, roots music, acoustic blues, just all that whole group. First of all, if you have a nice audio system, I think the nicest sound you get out of your audio system is acoustic instruments. They sound incredible, whether they're acoustic jazz instruments, trumpet, or brass instruments, or an upright bass, or a banjo, or acoustic guitar, a mandolin. They always just sound so perfect coming out of your speakers. So that I find very appealing. But like I said, growing up, listening to the Beatles and all that, and being a rocker, I could have cared less about that kind of music, and I was introduced to it early on, acoustic stuff, through a friend, had older siblings that played acoustic guitars and stuff. So I was fortunate that way, and then for some reason it just appealed to me. The first artists that really, the album that really kind of got me, it wasn't probably until the 70s, although I was into this particular record pretty early on. I'd say by the late 60s. Bob Dylan's Freewheelin' album is an incredible acoustic album. This album with Blowing in the Wind and Girl from the North Country, and it's just basically Bob and an acoustic guitar and a harmonica for the most part, and that's an album that is pretty much all acoustic, that is very influential. It influenced a ton of classic rock artists, the Beatles being one of them. But then, as I was listening to heavier music like Zeppelin and bands like that, this album came out, and it had a song on it called Gallows Pole. And if you listen to Gallows Pole, I mean, this is kind of a Zeppelin's acoustic album, I guess, but if you listen to Gallows Pole, it's got a banjo in it. And I never even thought of a banjo being a cool instrument or any instrument that I was interested in the least, even though I was more than aware of it just from it being watching the Beverly Hillbillies on TV, and seeing Bonnie and Clyde, where they used Flatt and Scruggs' Foggy Mountain Breakdown throughout the movie, Deliverance with the dueling banjos. They were all things that really brought a banjo into prominence, those particular shows and movies. And but it didn't catch me then. I could have cared less. But definitely, when I heard Gallows Pole and heard the banjo in the background that comes in around the second verse, it just kind of drove the song for me. And that was the first time I was aware that, that instrument had some value. From then on, it was seeing this gentleman on the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, John Hartford, long-haired guy, playing his banjo and singing these songs, and little did I know at the time that he wrote Glenn Campbell's biggest hit, "Gentle on My Mind." But obviously now I'm more than aware of that, because John Hartford's one of my musical heroes. So these albums here were particularly influential. Steam-powered aerial plane and John Hartford's Morning Bugle. I have to say, the next thing was hearing the Eagles come out with "Take It Easy." There's a nice banjo roll going through that song that's really impressed me. And then their second album, which is almost a bluegrass album, is Desperado. Uh, I'm 21. Bernie Leadon plays a lot of nice banjo in this album. I'm 21, and then there's a Doolin Dalton reprise at the end with some banjo and another instrumental banjo piece in here. This one really, really, really got me going. From there, it was seeing this gentleman, David Bromberg, and the David Bromberg Band, and he had a guy in his band called Dick Feggy, I think it's Feggy, Dick Feggy. He was from New York City, played anything with strings on it, but when he picked up a banjo, when that kicked in, man, that's what did it for me. The next day, basically, I had an insurance policy that my parents took out on me when I was like a little baby. They did that back in the 50s in the boomer generation. They had these cheap insurance policies, life insurance policies, and I ended up cashing mine in. I got like $75 cash, which I thought was a huge amount of money. And I bought myself a banjo, and cheapest freaking El Degas banjo you ever saw in your life. I mean, you can hardly keep the thing in tune. But so that really started me on my journey. And then I started listening to a lot of bluegrass music. And I was listening to Newgrass Revival, a lot of the young guys, Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas. This album is probably my favorite bluegrass album, and one of the it's a well sought after album on vinyl. J.D. Crowe and the New South, which had Tony Rice in it, Ricky Skaggs, J.D. Crowe, and Jerry Douglas also plays on this album. But this album is well known in bluegrass circles and record collectors who collect this kind of albums on Rounder Records. It's not even known by the New South, J.D. Crowe and the New South. It's known by the catalog number 0044. If you say, yeah, I'm looking for 0044, everyone knows what this album is. I remember when I found a mint copy of this and I put it on Instagram, our friend Elliot Cruz sent me a message saying, you got 0044. Like, it's just, I don't know of any other album that is uniquely remembered like that. So then the next guy who came into my life was Bela Fleck in about 1978 when he was just starting out, really. And I was friends with this young banjo player in Toronto, took a couple of lessons from him, and he knew about Bela in New York City, and he told me all about him. And then I started to, kind of watch for him. And this is Bela's latest album called My Bluegrass Heart, which is absolutely just an incredible record. One of my top albums of all time. I just think it's brilliant. It's so good. It came out last year. Bela Fleck, My Bluegrass Heart. You can check that out. But there are other things that really got me going too. Like then I became a fan because I didn't like traditional bluegrass music. I found it really the vocals, and they were like Bill Monroe and all those guys. I couldn't do it. Now I love it. You have to learn to appreciate it. And I eventually became to be a big fan of Earl Scruggs. And if you learn how to play a banjo and you buy the Learn How to Play the 5-String Banjo, Earl Scruggs instructional book, and that's a must. And I remember vividly to this day, I can remember I spent a year just trying to practice these banjo rolls, and I couldn't get it at all. And I have this vivid image of myself sitting at my parents' cottage, and their next door neighbor, the cottage next door, he had these stone steps leading up to his front door, and no one was around. It was really early in the summer, and I was sitting there with my banjo just playing, and I going like just it was such a struggle. And then all of a sudden, I started to get this syncopation going. I started to get it, and I went, I got it. It took me a year just to get my right hand and the rolls sounding like Scruggs style picker, and it was one of the most exciting epiphanies of my life. So it just from then on I just went crazy. But Flatt and Scruggs, live at Carnegie Hall. What a great, great record this is. This is Capital 2I. Fantastic. Or, I mean, Columbia 2I. Beautiful, beautiful record. Another one that came out that's very influential, one of the most influential albums ever made, where the young hippie Turks of LA go to Nashville and meet up with all the string players in Nashville and record this epic album, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? 3 record set. This is essential. This should be in everybody's collection. And my copy's got somebody's writing on it, but the records are in mint condition, so I'm so happy about that. Another guy who I fell on, the Grateful Dead. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, but before I was like really into the Dead, I was more into Jerry Garcia's the Jerry Garcia band, and they put out this album, the Jerry Garcia Acoustic Band, which is fantastic. This one's a record store day release on purple vinyl. I had like a black vinyl version back in the day, and this is one of my favorite acoustic albums of all time. This album really helped me bring the Dead into my life as a real passion. That kind of kick-started me. And one last album I'd like to mention is the Jefferson Airplane in 1966. Surrealistic Pillow. I absolutely love that album. It set me on just a love affair with that whole San Francisco scene. It's still my favorite album from that whole scene down there. And that album is, I guess, considered psychedelic in a way, but it's very acoustic. And Jorma Kaukonen, who is the guitar player in that, puts out a ton of his own albums with Hot Tuna and on his own. And this is one that I highly recommend if you can find it. It's called Quah, Q-U-A-H. A beautiful, beautiful album. This one is on red vinyl, on the Grunt label. Red and yellow vinyl, beautiful coloring. But what an incredible record this is. There's the hype sticker. I'm going to put it up there so if you guys want to pause and read that or whatever. But beautiful, beautiful record. So I guess what I'm trying to say is open your ears. It's not just Zeppelin and Hendrix and Cream and electric guitars or punk music or new wave or old British Invasion or classic rock. There's a lot of incredible music out there played by incredible musicians. If you you can find your way just by picking out, like listening to Led Zeppelin 4's Battle of Evermore and hearing that mandolin in that song. It's so gorgeous. Zeppelin did a lot of old folky British English folk type stuff in their music. The Eagles, the early Eagles albums, even Midnight Flyer off of On the Border, all the stuff from the Desperado album. Just there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of go, yeah. And then check out bands like the Bluegrass Revival. Any of the stuff I showed here. Bela Fleck is just like a genius musician. I mean, check out his work with the Newgrass Revival, him and Sam Bush and John Cowan, just incredible stuff. I hope this didn't bore you too much talking about, we're not talking about the Beatles here, so everyone have a great day. Let me know if you're interested in any of this type of music. I'd really like to see who's listening to something. Make some suggestions to me. I'd appreciate it. Have a great day again. Take care.